The lights in the auditorium were already dim when the camera captured a small, thin boy standing nervously backstage. His hands shook as he gripped an old scratched guitar that looked much older than him. Before anyone knew who he was or where he came from, the whispers had already begun. Because the moment the stage assistant called his name, something about him made the atmosphere shift. The boy walked slowly forward, stepping into the bright circle of light at the center of the America's Got Talent stage. And nobody expected the next few minutes to change everything, including Simon Cowell's own heart. From the very first second the audience saw him, they knew he wasn't the typical contestant. His clothes didn't fit perfectly. His shoes were worn at the edges, and his eyes showed the tiredness of someone who had lived too much life too early. The judges glanced at one another in curiosity, wondering who this child might be and what kind of story he carried. But the boy didn't try to explain himself. He didn't try to show confidence. He simply stood there breathing unevenly, holding his guitar like it was the only friend he had in the world. When Simon leaned forward and asked him his name, his voice cracked before he even spoke. He said he was from the Philippines. And the moment he said it, something fragile trembled inside him. The judges didn't interrupt. They just listened. The boy continued quietly, saying he used to sing on streets to earn money for food and that this guitar was given to him by a stranger when he was 6. He said it was the only thing he kept safe during the nights he slept outside, hiding under small roofs, praying it wouldn't be stolen. At that moment, the entire theater fell silent, not because of sympathy alone, but because of the honesty in his small, trembling voice. It was rare to see someone so young already understanding the weight of survival. Simon didn't say anything for a moment. He simply nodded, understanding more than words could ever express. The boy then adjusted the guitar strap, inhaling deeply when he said he would be singing Hotel California. The audience let out a collective gasp. It was an iconic song, a difficult one, and no one expected a child to even attempt it, let alone one who learned to sing on the streets without professional training. Yet his eyes didn't show fear at that moment. They showed something else. A flicker of hope mixed with responsibility, as if he knew this was his one chance in life to change everything. The first note he played was soft, slow, almost shy, but it carried something raw and haunting. People leaned forward, unsure if he could manage the song. But then he started singing, and the world around him changed instantly. His voice wasn't ordinary. It wasn't polished or trained. It was unique, filled with a scratchy softness and a mature pain that shouldn't belong to a boy his age. Every word he sang sounded like it had been lived, not just learned. The judges froze. The crowd grew motionless. It was as if the entire auditorium forgot to breathe. He sang the opening lines with a quiet emotion that crawled beneath the skin of everyone listening. His voice painted his life without him needing to tell the story. People imagined him singing on street corners as strangers passed by barely noticing. They imagined the hunger, the loneliness, the nights. He slept in silence with only his guitar beside him. Every note held a piece of his struggle. Every breath held a memory of a time when survival mattered more than dreams. When he reached the chorus, something unbelievable happened. His voice rose slightly, gaining strength, showing a grip of control that surprised even the judges. His VBR was natural, his tone haunting, and the audience felt chills running through them. Some people in the crowd lifted their hands to their mouths. Some wiped tears without even realizing, and Simon, the hardest to move, leaned back in his chair with eyes that slowly softened. This wasn't just talent. This was life experience pouring out through music. Halfway through the performance, the guitar strap slipped slightly off the boy's shoulder, but he kept playing without stopping. That tiny moment showed everyone how used he was to handling things that broke, slipped, or failed. He had learned long ago to keep going, even when nothing stayed in place. Even when the world didn't cooperate, it made his presence even more emotional. He reached the instrumental break and played with fingers that were rough from years of street performances. They were small, thin, but surprisingly skilled, moving across the strings with a smoothness that came not from lessons, but from survival. The guitar became an extension of his soul in that moment. People couldn't help imagining him sitting under dim street lights practicing alone because he had no one else to guide him. And all those years, all those nights had led him here under the biggest spotlight in the world. Then came the final chorus. His voice cracked, not from fear, but from overwhelming emotion. Instead of ruining the performance, it made it real, raw. Unforgettable. That crack felt like a window into his heart. And the audience felt it deeply. Simon covered his mouth and blinked rapidly. The camera zoomed in, capturing the exact moment when his eyes glistened. He wasn't just emotional. He was fighting tears. As the last note faded, the boy didn't know whether to smile or cry. He stood frozen, gripping his guitar, eyes shaking, chest rising and falling rapidly as if every second of his life had built up to this one fragile moment. There was no music playing anymore, but the silence was louder than any sound that could have followed. Everyone waited, suspended between breath and emotion. The audience stood up first. The entire theater erupted into applause, rising to their feet like a wave. The boy blinked in shock as he looked around, overwhelmed by the sight. He had never seen so many people stand for him. He had never been applauded by thousands. His reality had always been coins tossed into a cup, not standing ovations. The applause grew louder, echoing around him, and he pressed his lips together tightly, trying not to break down. He wasn't used to kindness in such a large form. He wasn't used to being seen, appreciated, valued. When the applause finally softened, Simon leaned forward again, his voice low and shaking. He told the boy that he didn't just sing the song. He lived it. He said that the boy's voice carried something no training could ever give, something no money could buy. He told him he saw bravery, pain, and beauty mixed in every note, and that he had never felt a performance so deeply in a very long time. The audience murmured in agreement, touched by Simon's sincerity. The boy lowered his head, unable to speak. His eyes filled with tears, but he wiped them quickly, still unsure if he was allowed to cry on a stage this big. Simon exhaled, running a hand over his face. For a moment, it looked like he was fighting something inside. Then, he stood up slowly. The crowd gasped even before they fully understood what was happening. But the boy saw Simon walking toward him and confusion washed over his face. Simon stopped directly in front of him, looking down at the trembling child holding the old guitar. He said that some moments in life are bigger than talent, bigger than performance, and that this was one of those moments. He said this boy deserved something huge, something life-changing. The boy's breath caught. The audience sensed the shift and began whispering excitedly. Simon placed his hand gently on the golden buzzer. The boy's eyes widened. His lips parted. His knees shook. Simon pressed the button. The auditorium exploded. Golden confetti burst into the air like a storm of sunshine. The audience screamed with joy. The judges stood and clapped, smiling and laughing. The boy collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by the sight of gold falling around him. He covered his face and cried openly, unable to contain years of emotions that had been locked inside. His guitar fell gently against his lap as he sobbed uncontrollably. Simon walked back to him, crouched down, and put an arm around the boy's shoulders. It was a rare moment of pure compassion that the cameras captured perfectly. Simon whispered something to him, and although the microphone didn't pick it up, the boy nodded repeatedly, crying harder. The confetti continued to rain down until the entire stage looked like a golden dream. For the first time in his life, this boy wasn't invisible. He wasn't struggling alone. He wasn't singing for coins. He was being celebrated, believed in, elevated to a place he had never imagined reaching. Everything he had survived. Every moment he had doubted himself. Every night he had gone hungry, all led to this one beautiful miracle. As the confetti settled, the boy stood again, still shaking, still crying, but with a smile finally forming on his face. When he looked out into the audience, he didn't see strangers anymore. He saw supporters. He saw people who believed in him. And when he looked at Simon, he saw a man who understood the power of giving someone a chance. The boy walked off stage with tears still running down his cheeks, clutching his old guitar as if it were carrying him into a new life. Backstage, everyone rushed to hug him, congratulate him, and wipe the confetti from his hair. He kept whispering, "Thank you," as if unsure whether he was allowed to receive such kindness. But it was real. It was finally real.